This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 538 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, back in your hosting seat after Matthias had to sit in from me last time. And today we'll talk about Borussia Dortmund ending their Bundesliga season with 73 points. Emotional goodbyes with Julian, Brandt, Niklas, Süle, Charlie Özcan, and I guess Sebastian Kehl, we can also mention in that breath, leaving the team, and exciting hellos with new center back signing of Joane Gadou, and of course we have also a couple other contract extensions to discuss. For all that and more, I'm joined by Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, welcome back I suppose. I'm doing fine, how are you?
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, the last times I just couldn't make it because my dog passed away. And yeah, last week there was also work, so I'm still reeling from that, obviously. It's very sad, but yeah, I don't know how to transition to Dortmund, but let's just do it. So the season ended on a better note than the last podcast, because that was sort of after Dortmund had dropped 3 out of 4 games with the 4-0 win against Freiburg in between, but yeah, it did feel like the season was petering out a little bit, and so it was nice for Dortmund to win the last home match against Frankfurt, because that was sort of a nice frame to then have the final home game for the likes of Julian Brandt and Niklas Süle and Charlie Özcan, of course, and Sebastian Kehl was also having a farewell, and then of course the match against Werder Bremen, 2-0 win. Felt a little bit routine, I guess, but also good to end the season on a W for sure. I don't know if we really want to talk much about these games in particular. The Frankfurt game certainly something I enjoyed. The Bremen game I sort of watched with one eye while I was also paying attention to what was going on other pitches around the league. Certainly hoping that Pauli would save themselves somehow. But yeah, it was also interesting to see that Hoffenheim took an absolute beating away to Gladbach, and Stuttgart taking care of business, etc., etc. So, yeah, I guess the first question to you, Lars, is, we have our award show next episode, and maybe we should do, before I ask a question, do a little
Call to actions?
Call to action, exactly, to send us your categories. As you know, the Yellow Wall Pod Season Awards are determined by some cookie categories that the user sent us. So be it on X, the Everything app, or in the YouTube comments, send us the categories for how we should adjudicate the awards, and then see who will be the winner. I'm very intrigued, of course, who will be the player of the season and whatnot. I think these awards are usually a given, but we are very happy about your participation. But let's just ramble a little bit about what we make of this season overall. Lars, now looking back at it, what will stay, what will remain, what are your highlights, lowlights, etc. from the season, looking back at it?
Honestly, I'm kind of struggling to answer because I don't know that there were many, super highlights and also, very low lowlights, if that makes sense, because I think the theme of the season that we've kind of talked about throughout our episodes this season was kind of the stability of this team, conceding the fewest goals in the Bundesliga, the most clean sheets by team and also by extension, obviously, Gregor Kobel, because he, for the first time, I think ever, I don't know about his previous clubs, but certainly at Dortmund, he always missed games, so it was very important for him to also finish the Bremen game and go 34 games. And he kept a clean sheet in 15 of them, which obviously matched Roman Weidenfeller's club record. So in a way, that's probably what I will remember the most, just the, I guess, lack of panic when watching Dortmund, because usually you could basically set a timer for the next collapse or meltdown. And certainly in the Bundesliga, that didn't really come. I mean, there were a few games here and there, like the 3-3 draw against St. Pauli. I don't even want to do the mental maths of how many goals St. Pauli even scored throughout the season, and the percentage that Dortmund conceded on the first match day. There was also the 3-3 draw against Stuttgart in autumn, which wasn't great. The two Bayern games obviously always tell their own kind of story, but ultimately I think 73 points is definitely not anything to scoff at. It's in Dortmund's top 5 ever Bundesliga seasons, at least in terms of, the 18-team schedule, if that makes sense. And I would argue that if there had been anything to play for over the last, month and a half, so basically since they stole a win away to Stuttgart, it could arguably have been more than 73 points because, as you already mentioned, they dropped 3 or 4 games against Leverkusen, Hoffenheim, and Gladbach. At least the Gladbach game kind of felt like what we sometimes call summer football in German. So, they didn't really get up for that game, and I don't really have the capacity to blame them, really, because it's been such a long season. If we also consider that they had to play until the final whistle last season with the mad dash into the Champions League, then they had the Club World Cup to contend with. They didn't really have a genuine summer break last year, so if we take that into account, it certainly paints the Bundesliga season in a better picture. And I guess, the players already said it, like, they've achieved the absolute maximum of what they could achieve as it pertains to FC Bayern, because obviously they play in a league of their own. A lot of years, 73 points would have been good enough to at least very much contend for the title, if not outright win it. Up until maybe like 10 or so years ago, when FC Bayern kind of decided to run away with it in the Bundesliga. I think weren't Schalke crowned second division champions with 70 points this year? Something like that. So 73 points is definitely nothing to scoff at. And in some ways, I think, at least in terms of the Bundesliga, that is kind of a job well done. Obviously, if we also take a look at, the cup competitions, then the picture gets a bit murkier, because there was this meltdown away to Atalanta, which cost them at least one round in the Champions League. Now, I would argue I'd rather have one meltdown against Atalanta than being smacked by Bayern over 2 legs, which I don't know how that would have impacted the rest of the season. And obviously the unlucky defeat at home to Leverkusen in the cup was also disappointing, because realistically the cup is the only opportunity for Dortmund to win silverware these days. And after being very poor in the cup for decades and then turning it around under Klopp over the last few years, it's kind of gone the other way again. They haven't really made a decent cup run since winning the thing in 21 against Leipzig. So that's definitely something I think they will have on, their wish list for next season.
Yeah, not only was it the COVID Cup, but annoyingly, Dortmund did exit this competition against Leverkusen at home in a game where they were certainly not the second best team. So still vexing, but this is sort of the well, that's football kind of result, and not you were just not good enough. I think the previous year, where Dortmund crashed out against Wolfsburg with a big injury crisis, certainly was a little worse. But yeah, in terms of cup competitions, it wasn't the best season. You know, it was not a magical Champions League run. I also thought that the when we speak of meltdowns, I mean, we had a couple early on. You just mentioned the one against St. Pauli. I would add the one against Juventus, the 4 draw. Again, in the end, maybe a little bit painful. I think overall the Champions League season, like the 2-0 loss to Tottenham, probably one of the worst performances the all season. I think people also did expect a win against Bodo Glimt, but in the end, maybe that was a false expectation. And yeah, the 2-0 away, the 2-0 home loss to Inter. I don't know, you're probably a better judge of that, but I feel like Dortmund might have come away with a draw in that, but they certainly were not the better team in that. So the Champions League run really showed that this team was not really built for competing against really the top opposition. But on the other hand, we had very few slip-ups against the lower league and mid-table teams, which I think is still a big plus for me. Still, of course, the ambition should be, of course, to always compete against anyone, and Dortmund, especially at home, in my opinion, should be able to beat any team in the world. But that being said, going into the season, I was really concerned with another huge injury crisis, also due to the Club World Cup and the lack of a summer break, and the fact that Niko Kovac managed to make this team fit when he took over to go on this quite, I don't know if it was miraculous, but really still a good achievement to finish 4th in the previous season and to maintain that level of fitness. To me, certainly one of the things that he needs to get a lot of credit for. I know we take it for granted at sometimes, because it should be taken for granted that the team is fit enough, but as we've seen in the past, that Dortmund had so many injury malaise and just poor fitness, that, yeah, to me it's good to have a coach that manages to get that sort of basic thing down and handle it pretty well. I thought that rotationally Dortmund all season were pretty decent in terms of managing what is not an easy season. So yeah. And in terms of emotional highlights, obviously we had the goal from Reggiani, which was to me really good, but I feel like you said, sort of the win against Bayern or so, like a real highlight was just not there. And so yeah, this is, even though it's points wise the 5th best season, I think this will remain a bit of a meh season to everyone, just because Dortmund didn't really dazzle anyone with football. There's not like a Dortmund brand of football that is sort of reported in the far wide world to for everyone to tune into Dortmund games and be dazzled. That's just not what's happening right now. And but it's also a season where some turmoil happened. We have a new sporting director, as we just alluded to earlier, with Ole Burg, who is now taking the reins over from Sebastian Kehl. And with that, I think comes a little bit of excitement for the new season and the return of some hope. But let's talk about the goodbyes first, because Julian Brandt, I think first and foremost, did end his Dortmund career after 7 years, and I've dubbed the Yellow Wall Pod as Julian Brandt Hive for a long time. Was a little bit of a topsy-turvy experience too, but I think the recent weeks, at least to me, showed once again why I'm always going to be a fan of Julian Brandt, because I do think he is a special footballer, and I personally also enjoyed the videos that Dortmund did put out with following him around for one day, and of course the podcast. I think it was nice to have very, I guess you can say, reflected Julian Brandt. I just liked him personally, and he had some really nice assists toward the end too, just highlighting that there is a very good footballer in him. I think we can all agree that he never reached the heights that we were hoping for he could reach here. But still, I think it's going to be harder for Dortmund to replace him than many may expect. Lars, what do you make, before we talk about the other guys, but what do you make of sort of the Brandt era, if you want to call it that, at Borussia Dortmund? And do you have any idea or any sort of guess or notion where he might end up next?
I think the second part is I don't want to say like obvious, but it certainly feels like he wants to go to Spain to play in La Liga. I'm thinking he's not necessarily Real Madrid or FC Barcelona material, as it were, but there are some links with Atletico, which I guess would be an interesting fit, because obviously he's not really known for his hard work off the ball, even though it's certainly gotten better over the years. But he doesn't strike me as the most prototypical of Diego Simeone players. But then again, I think Simeone kind of has mellowed a little bit over the years, and seeing as La Liga is basically irrelevant for Atletico in a sense, because they are very far off from Barca and to a lesser extent Real Madrid, and very far ahead usually of everyone else. They kind of can pick their spots and rotate their squad starting in like February or March. So if that's where he goes, I mean, all power to him. There are also rumors linking him with, I think it was Galatasaray, which obviously would be interesting because they have a large German contingent already with, for example, Gundogan and Leroy Sané. I don't know. I don't want to see Brandt going to what I wouldn't consider a top league. I think he fits in, the Spanish style of football. I think his girlfriend is Spanish. He started learning Spanish quite a while ago. So seeing as it is a rather easy language to pick up, he should be decent in it. So I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being La Liga, which is fun because then we can also kind of still follow him in there, because that's certainly something that I'm planning to do, not necessarily like on a week-to-week basis, but certainly check in every now and then, because over the last few years, I would say that Julian Brandt was certainly among my, top 5 or so favorite personal players at Dortmund, just because I really like the way he plays football, the way he understands it also. He's also just a decent guy, which to some people matters more than to others, I suppose. But I'm very happy that he got a good send-off, that they didn't drag it out and then, only announce after the season that there wasn't going to be a new contract. I think he's gotten a lot of appreciation over the last few weeks, thoroughly deserved, because obviously in this day and age to spend 7 years at the same club is an impressive feat, especially considering that Brandt has not necessarily been, unquestioned at Dortmund. Also, I think from parts of the fan base, because he isn't that, he's not the typical type of player that, the Dortmund fans fall in love with, because he can sometimes look a bit phlegmatic, or that his head isn't really in the game. But he's kind of won people over, I think, over the years with his personality, and also obviously his quality. And I'm, as we talked about when the news was first announced a few weeks back, I'm fully with you. It's going to be much harder to replace him than Dortmund fans realize, because Julian Brandt basically gave you, 15 to 20 goals and assists per season with his eyes blindfolded. So it's going to be tough to find someone to replace that level of production. But then there's also a chance that, someone they find might actually exceed the heights of Julian Brandt. And lastly, you mentioned the Julian Brandt era at Dortmund. I think ultimately the question is, do we even consider this his era? Because obviously he spent most of this time alongside Marco Reus. And then when Reus left, I think there was a real push from the club to kind of make this into Julian Brandt's team. Remember that he switched numbers from 19 to 10. He was also made vice captain, and I think that project kind of didn't work out. And I think Brandt was much happier this last season when he was out of the limelight a little bit more, with, Nico Schlotterbeck basically becoming the face of the team.
Yeah, I think that is a very important point to make, because certainly the push to make Julian Brandt the face of the club, I think, was not as successful as everyone had hoped. You just mentioned the swap, the number swap to number 10, and it was also interesting for him to talk about when the sort of transition happened between sort of him and Marco Reus, where he felt like he would have rather played with Marco Reus on the field rather instead of him, when the playing time was sort of determined between those two. That I thought was interesting to hear that perspective, because I do believe too that these two players always had a very good synergy. Marco Reus obviously, I think, famously good at being a synergy positive player. I mean, his chemistry with most players in attacking midfield was really amazing. I think the first time we had the Götzeus, if you want to call it that, thing going, to me at least, was just like a dream come true almost. And turned into a nightmare very relatively quick after one season. But also Reus and Jadon Sancho, I think, was a really delightful combination. And I also thought that Reus and Brandt was pretty powerful in midfield as sort of a double 10, double 8 kind of configuration, if you want to look at it that way. But I think Julian Brandt did not really have an era that you would call it that, maybe a Mats Hummels era or eras, but I don't think it's not like a Marco Reus era or any of that sort. He was just not good enough to become that, honestly. But still, I'm, in hindsight, still happy that Dortmund signed him, still happy that we had him on the team, and a little disappointed that he never quite managed to really bring consistency to the quality that he undoubtedly has. And so, wish him all the best, but that's just how it is. Next guy on the list is Niklas Süle, who not only ends his Dortmund career, but his footballing career in general. I've not seen the interview with Sky Sport Germany, I think it was, where he announced his retirement. If you have any, I don't want to say quotes, but sort of any things to, I don't know if report is the right word, but say about that interview, be my guest. Other than that, I'm personally more glad that it's over. He was brought in, I think that was the first Kiel transfer, and of course he came in on a free transfer from FC Bayern, and Dortmund were sort of holding him up a little bit as a fuck you to FC Bayern, trying to get one over them, because Bayern were also interested in signing Süle, but not to the salary that Dortmund in the end paid, and overpaid, I think, in the end. We can all agree is that Niklas Süle did not really manage to hold up his end of the bargain, but he did have very good stints in between those two. Shouldn't discount that, because the focus is often on what Niklas Süle has not delivered, but he certainly also did manage to play really well in a lot of parts when he was fit and healthy, but unfortunately those parts were simply not enough to pay him the amount of money he was paid. And in the end, it's a little bit annoying that someone of his caliber couldn't once again bring that completely to the football field. And also, when we talk about Julian Brandt being a really good guy, I personally also think that Niklas Süle is a very decent fella. But yeah, it is certainly time for fresh blood, as they say. Lars, what do you make of the Niklas Süle stint at Borussia Dortmund? To me, what will remain, obviously, his goal-saving action against PSG, and of course, then the goal that was a little too late on the game we would not mention here, but still, at least he was one of the guys that nearly made it happen. But yeah. What do you make out of the Süle stint?
First of all, we have to give you, Stefan, kudos, because you actually called him calling it quits after the season months ago, which I think at the time I was very dismissive of the idea, because I thought perhaps more of Niklas Süle, the competitor. I guess I have a somewhat unwoke opinion of his decision to, end his career, basically, because he said in this interview, which was actually a podcast, but which is also distributed by Sky, which is why you thought it was an interview with them, that
Well, it was a podcast.
Yeah, but
interview.
It's not the Sky. They only work with the distribution of it. Not that matters.
I see.
One iota for our discussion, but he said that basically, I mean, I'm very much paraphrasing, and I might not be doing so in good faith, but he basically said that he doesn't care about football enough to still go through it all, and when he feared another torn ACL after his latest injury, and then got the news that it wasn't an ACL, for him that was the moment he realized he wanted to be done with it all. I kind of don't love your marquee signing from a few years ago, who was your highest paid player for a reported 40 million per annum salary, coming out and saying that basically he doesn't really care about football in that way. I mean, obviously, all power to him. He can do whatever he wants, but it kind of tracks with how he's comported himself over his time at Dortmund, because we don't need to beat around the bush. A lot of his problems were kind of self-made, outside of the injuries, which players have very little control, if any, over. But with Niklas Süle, there's also the lack of professionalism when it comes to keeping himself in mint condition for playing football. Like for a laugh, he entered the podcast studio with a McDonald's bag, for example, which obviously was played up for comedic effect, but kind of also fits into the picture he's cultivated over the years here. And to his credit, he's talked openly about his issues with keeping, a fit playing weight and all that. But when you make someone who was at the time a regular player for the German national team, and someone whom, as you already mentioned, FC Bayern actually wanted to keep, when you make someone like that your highest paid player, you kind of expect the best of him. And I don't know that Niklas Süle gave Dortmund his best over the last few years. Obviously, with the contract ending, it kind of doesn't matter to them that he then also decides to end his career. But again, kind of his reasoning behind it, to me, also at least a little bit informs what happened over his years at Dortmund. And I mean, he basically said himself that it was pretty much not what either side hoped for when they signed the contract in, what was it, 21? Or was it 22? Must have been 22. And Süle also said that he wasn't even sure how, the fans would react for his last home game. And I think the reaction was probably informed by his decision to retire, because if it had been, just a goodbye and then he was going to find another club somewhere, I don't know that it would have been such a warm goodbye from Dortmund fans. But obviously with his decision, which has largely been lauded by the media, the public, Niko Kovac, Ole Burg, Lars Ricken, everyone basically, I think fans kind of reacted a bit differently perhaps than they would have if their goodbye would have been an indication of how they viewed Süle over his years at Dortmund.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and to that extent, the departure of Niklas Süle, at least to me, is also connected with, slimming the wage bill, no pun intended. Same for Julian Brandt, I think, who also was a higher earner. But, these 14 millions per annum that you just mentioned also took up a massive chunk out of Dortmund's wage bill that Dortmund can now hopefully invest in players that perform more adequately, because we talked a little bit, or a lot actually, about how Dortmund often also just underachieve, and I think having so much salary tied up in players that don't bring the performance that you absolutely need, and as a team like Dortmund where you basically whine about the resources that Bayern have versus your own on pretty much every microphone that you see, making sure that you efficiently spend your money is a big factor. So Niklas Süle exiting as well as Julian Brandt gives Ole Burg a lot of room to play with. Obviously, we just did give Nico Schlotterbeck a race, so there's that. But still, Dortmund have made a new signing in Joane Gadou. He is joining Dortmund from FC Salzburg. He is 19 years old, and his contract will run out now in 2031. And very young, exciting French center back who went through the youth academy of PSG, as far as I know, and as far as the YouTube scouting goes, he is a tall guy that has a high ceiling, I guess, and is still a little bit raw in his defending, but it appears to have a very good pace, which is very important if you play with a high line. It appears to have a good understanding in terms of ball builder play and whatnot. So there's that. And when he was speaking first, he was actually talking more about his defensive prowess and how he sees his own goal like his own house that he needs to defend. So in that regard, I thought he made a very good first impression without actually having seen him play football. I don't know if we can already label him as a bulk signing, or if this is something that Dortmund have been cooking up regardless, and something that would have happened either way. I don't know, but it was certainly for me very good to see that Dortmund get stuff done a little bit sooner than the end of the transfer deadline. Having a transfer announced before the season ends, to me is just very nice to see. So Lars, I don't know if you've done more digging than I have into Joane Gadou and his sort of footballing prowess, but what do you make of this transfer? And apologies to Jali Ashan, of course, at this moment, but I feel like this is just a good transition from Süle and the old defender to a new center back.
I was literally going to ask, did you forget about Salih Özcan? Which I guess you didn't.
No, I just thought we can.
Goodbye. I will refer to last episode, because that's where I gave my initial take on Joane Gadou, which hasn't really changed because I have not watched further YouTube videos about him, which is obviously the only thing I could do, because I'm not going to waste my time finding Sky Austria on my TV box and watching Salzburg against Admira Wacker Mödling, if they are even in the first division. these days in Austria. So I will say though,
saying it with the most disdain.
I will say though there is one red flag about Joane Gadou. Dortmund put out I think they called it This or That on YouTube. So basically a would you rather, and he was asked the age-old question, Messi or Ronaldo, and he chose Ronaldo. So that is definitely a red flag in my opinion, because I don't really understand how anyone can do football for a living and think Cristiano Ronaldo is a better player than Lionel Messi. I don't know if Gadou read the question differently or just likes Ronaldo better personally, which also is a red flag in my opinion. So obviously I'm having the tongue in my cheek right now, but I guess we'll just have to wait, how he looks. Given that the reporting is that Dortmund are going to stick with the back three, they needed to sign another centre half because obviously they are letting go of Niklas Süle. Emre Can is going to miss certainly the first part of next season, maybe even, the entire first half, because he's at an age where torn ACL might take a little bit longer than it usually does nowadays. And I don't know how much they really plan on playing Mane and Rejani next season, so they needed to sign an additional centre half, especially considering just how much time Ben Sebaini deputized at centre half this season, but he's also kind of your second left wing back, unless that's Maximilian Bayer's permanent spot going forward. So it made sense to sign another centre half. And given the financial outlay and also the fact that Gadou has played in a lot of football for Salzburg, has played in a German-speaking country, I think that's probably an underrated aspect. He should be able to pick up a few bits and bobs of, football terminology in German rather quickly. I think of the three signings they've made right now, just going by financials also, he should easily have the most immediate impact, given that Kyle Prates and Justin Lerma are coming over from South America at the age of 18, not having any relevant European experience outside of, in Lerma's case, training with the under-23s for like a week. So Gadou, as of right now, is their marquee signing. I'm sure there's going to be someone's going to come in and surpass that. So it's a bit of a wait and see, but it's certainly also good that they are keeping at it with the young guys, going back to the philosophy that worked so well over the years, which they kind of moved away from, coincidentally, with the likes of Süle and Özcan, where they went for more proven Bundesliga quality. I think it's certainly more entertaining, interesting to sign these young guys and hope you can develop them into good players. But obviously that also comes with a few risks, because if we've seen how many players need some time to get used to playing at Dortmund over the years, and that even extended to guys like Waldemar Anton or Marcel Sabitzer, who are very experienced or came over very experienced, much older than these kids. I think we will have to be careful with our expectations towards the new signings next season.
Yep, I agree. I mean, you can really have a long list of players that took a long time. I mean, you just mentioned Ben Sebaini, his first season not great at Dortmund. Felix Metscher, 30 million signing from Wolfsburg, took his sweet time to get to where he is now. And of course, Dorian Malen, for example, who I remember when we signed him, I was like, oh, we're going to have him in his prime. He's already a little bit older, so he's going to hit the ground running. Also, I want to say it took about half season to really show that he is capable of playing football well. So, certainly something that we need to take into account. But I was just thinking about how I wanted Dortmund to sign Niklas Süle back when he was playing for Hoffenheim, and then we ended up with Ömer Toprak from Leverkusen. And so going back into a different direction. I too appreciate, and if there's risk, there's always risk involved for sure. But I'm, let's say, just optimistic, and for now trust the judgment of the Dortmund higher ups that this is a good signing, and Dortmund will develop a good center back. But yeah, the back three thing sticking around was a point of order for you, Lars. So what do you make of that report? Well, I don't know if it was actually quoted somewhere that Dortmund apparently plan their squads so that they will also play with three at the back heading into the next season.
I guess I'm not surprised because obviously it's the system that has worked well for them ever since they switched to it in, what was it, March 25. Since then, of games they really cared about, they only lost to Barcelona, Real Madrid, Leverkusen, and Bayern, Tottenham, and Inter Milan. So a reasonable group of clubs to lose games to. So they've become this stable team that, takes care of business more often than not while playing with a back three. And given that there's no coaching change, apparently, anyway, it makes sense in that regard. I think I would have liked to see them go back to a back four because I kind of believe there's a reason why pretty much every good team in Europe plays with a back four. That also makes it easier to scout for players on the market because, there are defined roles for players and it's not always easy to slot players into a different system. I think the reasoning given in the reporting is that they don't believe they can overhaul their squad within one transfer window to accommodate for the switch back to a back four, which presumably would coincide with signing actual wingers. But I think you kind of have to start at some point. You certainly want to be more flexible than they were this season when they just did have no wingers, so it would have been very difficult to go for a 4-2-3-1, for example, on a regular basis, because I don't know that Maximilian Bayer and Karim Adeyemi are ideal fits for those roles, because I think ideally they probably both play around a striker with freedom to move around, but they don't hug the touchline so much. I would have liked to see at least a move somewhere in that direction, maybe not go full time with the back four, but at least start the process, because again, just going by what everyone else does, presumably Dortmund are going to go back to a back four eventually. Maybe that's only happening with the next head coach, whenever that happens. Right now, I would say at some point in 27 would be where a new head coach might be coming in. But I can also understand, obviously, the level of success they've had in this current setup and not upsetting the apple cart, as it were. It's once again, basically these days every summer is disrupted, but this time it's a World Cup where a lot of Dortmund players will not be available. I don't know that you can really make such a big change when you can't practice it with a lot of your players. For example, Dortmund's center backs, Schlotterbeck and Anton, are going to be with the German national team throughout the World Cup whenever that ends, and then they are on vacation, and then it's probably going to be a situation where they only have maybe a 2-week summer prep, as it were, before the season starts in the Cup. So, long story short, I can understand it, but I don't love it.
Yeah, say it with me, it is always transitional season. But yeah, I certainly agree with every point you made, especially the annoying part that Dortmund don't really have a spot for skillful wingers, when I think this is certainly something that has been, I don't want to say trademark, but certainly something how Dortmund did create a lot of goals. So we'll see how they replace Julian Brandt now, but certainly puts more emphasis on having a lot of creativity in the middle of the field. So we'll see how that pans out, and of course what that also means for the talent that Dortmund have in their youth department, and there are certainly a couple of wingers in there as well, where you would hope that they get some playing time. But as it looks, that's not going to be as easy. I know everything is a little more fluid on a football field, and certainly you can still adjust and tweak the lineup throughout the game, especially late in the game. But still, personally, I would hope to see a back four every now and then. And also, I feel like you're not putting enough pressure on opponents, ironically, in games like, for example, against Bayern, where I understand the 5 at the back thing. You have more press resistance and 3 on paper at the back, and don't lose the ball as closely to your goal and whatnot. But you also need to just put attacking pressure on the opponent to push them back, and having one more attacking player with skill versus a wing back, I think makes a difference. I also don't know if I love the idea of Maximilian Bayer as a left full back or wing back going forward. If that's more of a consistent thing or not, we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm right there with you. And yeah, talking about young players, once again, sorry to Shadi Ashan for skipping over him, but like you said last, you already talked about him, and Dortmund did extend the contracts with Samuel Inacio, starting with him, I guess, until 2029. It was very nice to see him score his debut goal against Frankfurt, and he nearly scored again against Bremen. Just nice to see that he is finally getting some playing time, and playing well. I think that's the most important part, that he does not look like a fish out of water out there, but he has a certain, let's say, defensive impetus already. Obviously not technically and positionally a 1A yet, but you can certainly see that he is not someone that just rests up front and waits for the ball to be passed to him, but he is actively working in the team, and when he has the ball, I like his vision on the field. I like that he knows how to play a pass. I think he had a nice pre-assist in that Frankfurt game as well, and so I'm optimistic on seeing more of him and seeing his development. Is he? I've heard it somewhere else regarded as the Julian Brandt replacement. I think that would be one step too far for an 18-year-old, but certainly good to have some talent come through and actually deliver on stage for Dortmund, where, like I said, does not feel out of place. And Lars, if you have some words and thoughts on Inacio making this contract extension, which something I guess we all expected. I don't know. Maybe we can discuss the length. Why only 2029? Maybe that's a talking point.
Usually, these players sign contracts when they're underage until they turn 18, and then immediately another contract kicks in, which quite often is 3 years in length. So I don't know, maybe they only gave him basically a bit more money. I don't know if that's the reason. I did certainly, I don't know, there was an eyebrow raised when I saw the number 2029, because you would expect someone who's had this kind of, I guess we could call it, breakout over the last few weeks to get the full 5 years, which is the maximum contract term that you are allowed to do in Germany. I don't really know what the reason is. I don't know how much it matters, because if he develops at the current rate, then you are probably looking at selling him in 28 anyway. And if he doesn't, then he should be amenable to another contract extension before then. So it's not the end of the world. When it comes to his performances, I'm actually surprised how well he's doing, because I watched him quite a bit at the under-19s this season, where he did not impress me all that much. I think Mathys Albert looked far better at the under-19 level, and obviously there are, I think, 2 years between them. Or maybe it's 1.5 or something like that, but for that reason, I'm quite surprised at how well Inacio is doing. I think Niko Kovac actually deserves quite a bit of credit, which most people will not give him, because he kind of slow-played it with Inacio a little bit. When Inacio and Albert and I think Kaba as well were invited to train with the first team over the winter, Kovac kind of talked about Inacio making the biggest immediate impression. But he still had to wait a bit, and then didn't his debut come away to Bayern? And then there were a couple of shorter appearances, and I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It worked, because Inacio towards the end of the season really had a big impact, starting I think the last 4 games in a row, playing 90 minutes in I think 2 of those games. You already mentioned his debut goal against Frankfurt. Like, that is basically how you bring a young player along. You wait for them to be ready to make a real impact. You don't force it. So I guess that's one of the things where I think Kovac doesn't get the right kind of credit for actually a job pretty well done. The question about him being a Brandt successor, I would very much agree with you that an 18-year-old on the back of, 7 or so Bundesliga games, you shouldn't put him in the shoes of a 30-year-old with more than 300 Bundesliga appearances. That wouldn't be fair. He's going to hit the rookie wall at some point. He basically didn't play in the Champions League or the Cup. That's something that a young player will have to deal with next season, where I think he's going to be very much a part of the rotation, but depending on whom Dortmund are signing towards the rest of the transfer window, which hasn't even started yet, but you know what I mean. He's going to be a part of, the top, 16 or so players in terms of minutes, but I don't know that we need to put, more of an expectation on it, because there are also some holes in his game, obviously. Like, I think I would very much like him to be more dynamic. He likes to take players on and all that, but he lacks like a little bit of pace, I would say. I don't know that his technique is absolutely elite. Obviously that might be a bit of, a nitpicky thing, but when we're talking about someone replacing Julian Brandt, who basically started like 95% of important games over 7 years at a club like Borussia Dortmund, you are kind of looking for, a very good player, obviously. So if we want to be nitpicky, then I don't know how good his technique ultimately is. I think it's fine, but I don't know if it's, a real strength. So there are some aspects where he obviously still has to work on things, but it's very hard not to be impressed by, the impact he's made over the last few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I could take his sort of the technique, the dribbling skill, and maybe also the dynamism of Mathys Albert and fuse that with Inacio, then yeah, I think we would have an extremely good player. But I think Mathys Albert will also come along. But like we previously discussed, maybe not, because we're playing three at the back, and so we'll see how that works out. But I am also very excited about Mathys Albert, but not as excited as I am about Moussa Kaba, because he is someone that we have not seen as much of yet, because he had a couple of, I don't know if you want to call it growing pains, but he certainly was dealing with a few injuries, which, as we know at Dortmund, he is always a concern. But, he is a very tall central midfielder and has been around since the ripe old age of 10. He has started his Dortmund career, if you want to call it that, which, I would call it that now, since he has been awarded a professional contract since he joined the under 11s. So that is already very impressive. And whenever he is playing and I'm watching him, I am reminded, I don't know if I even want to say it, but Yaya Touré is the comp that sparks to mind. Maybe that's because he's a very tall black dude. I don't know. But he is very commanding in midfield. He has a lot of technique, considering how tall and large he really is. And my prediction is that this will translate well. And we are always talking about true youth development, and there are a lot of players that come through Dortmund's younger ranks, let's say, like a Christian Pulisic, like a Jadon Sancho, etc. But obviously these are all players that join still at a relatively late age. But Musa Kaba would be a guy coming through really from the youth team. I mean, he is from Bielefeld, so he's not a true Dortmunder, but he is still from the region, and that would be an absolute dream story for me. And I don't want to hype him up too much because I don't want to jinx him, if that makes sense. But I'm extremely excited about him and his integration into Dortmund's midfield in the coming years. Dortmund did not communicate themselves how long exactly his contract runs, but I think there were reports that it's also 2029. Lars, obviously, he is not with 17 years old on the level as, say, Jude Bellingham was when he joined Dortmund at 17. But am I reasonable for being excited about this player getting a professional contract and hopefully making his development further in the Dortmund shirt?
Honestly, I think you're being a little bit unreasonable, because I think on X you
Maybe
said that this was the most important thing Dortmund do this summer, basically, in terms of signings, transfers, and all that. And
I don't know what I said verbatim, but I feel like maybe in hindsight it could be.
Yeah,
that's what I
mean,
wanted to convey.
For one thing, like, when there's no jeopardy of a player actually leaving, like, I don't know if I'm going to give them too much credit for signing into what
for
I
formality,
the
fair.
box standard deal that I kind of talked about earlier. He's still underage, so they can't. I think there's a policy, at least, maybe it's not even allowed, but there's a policy to not give out contract details for underage players. So I'm assuming it's going to be the typical contract for 3 years that kicks in once you're 18. I don't know when his birthday is. The rest, I mean, I hope you're right, because obviously the player you are describing sounds amazing. I haven't seen that from him at all, because he's been injured so much. And I don't know how much that is just, as you kind of said, growing pains. Quite literally, I think one aspect of it was that he grew by a few centimeters in a fairly short amount of time, and that is obviously stress on musculature and bone structure and all that. So until he's showing that he can stay healthy for extended periods of times, I'm going to withhold my judgment. I think in theory, the player is exactly what every club kind of looks for. A local guy playing a vital position with a lot of physical traits. But again, I just haven't been able to see it, let alone him being able to show it. So it's kind of a wait and see. He's definitely, I shouldn't say definitely and then say I think, but I definitely think he's going to spend the summer with the first team and get playing time during the Asia tour and all the other friendlies, and then presumably going back to the under 23s to get meaningful playing time during the season, because even though Dortmund aren't necessarily flush with central midfielders, they are certainly still well stocked enough for Carver to not get many minutes with the first team unless he absolutely blows everyone away, which would be a nice problem to have. But I don't know that he would be well served getting like Salih Özcan's minutes, because he basically only played in garbage time when a few other players were out injured this past season, as we now have to say.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think we don't need to rush anything here. And like you just said, I'm just excited for him to be with the team and get these preseason minutes and just, train with the professionals. So I think that's already going to be helpful. And yeah, I also believe that he is probably going to get more playing time with the under 23 center. Yeah, like you said, or like I said, I don't know, but making the integration under Niko Kovac is also not that easy for a young player often. So I don't know, maybe there will be a loan on the cards sooner than later. I have no idea what exactly the direction is that Dortmund and Moussa Kaba will take. I also don't know what his development exactly will be. I mean, he is now 1 meter 96 or 6'4" in American units. So pretty tall. So I hope for him, for his sake, that there are not many more growth spurts, but he is 17, so he might as well, might still get a little taller. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm excited about this kid. I hope everything goes well and it's going to be a success story. But yeah, maybe this is time to say goodbye to Salih Özcan instead, since we're already talking about central midfielders. Yeah, goodbye, Charlie. It's been nice. Thanks for being here. I'm still a little sad that it did not work out, because it did not feel good signing Salih Özcan from Cologne in the manner that we did. Not because it wasn't a good transfer for us, but just because it ripped their hearts out a little bit unnecessarily in hindsight. It felt like, would he have probably left one way or another? Sure, but yeah, unfortunately not the number 6 that Dortmund needed, even though we all, and especially you, Lars, thought that he was going to be very effective. I think I can't quite remember, but was he sort of the successor to Thomas Delaney back then, or in what context was he signed?
Your guess is as good as mine, Stefan. Thanks for throwing me under the bus late in this episode. I will just say that there's a reason why I don't do this for a living, and at least I'm in good company, because I think Salih Özcan is basically considered the one signing that Matthias Sammer was really instrumental in, and Matthias Sammer won the Bundesliga both as a player and as a head coach, and if he can think highly of Salih Özcan and be wrong, then so can certainly I do. And at the end of the day, the transfer fee was very marginal for modern standards. I'm pretty sure Özcan wasn't on a debilitating contract. And he's been a good soldier. No. I think a lot of players would not have taken it lightly, as he has, basically, that, he was weighed and deemed too light for Borussia Dortmund, and they tried to ship him out on loan more than once, and Wolfsburg took him for half a season, and then he kind of had to return because Dortmund had a massive injury crisis. I'm pretty sure he's going to go to Turkey and sign a nice contract with one of the Istanbul clubs, for example. He's going to the World Cup with Turkey. So I think Salih Özcan will not look back at his time at Dortmund, too sadly, if that makes sense. And neither should we, because you kind of need those role players. And there was upside when they signed him. It didn't materialize, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Exactly. So hopefully Dortmund finds a better number 6, because I still think we need someone that can play the Özcan role, if you want to call it that, on a higher level. But that is for Ole Burg now to figure out, and not for us. But yeah, one thing we certainly should also discuss, since we haven't done so, I think, on our last episode, is the new home kit. And my opinion, I'm intrigued about yours, but I think they look absolutely dashing in these new kits, and I am very happy that this is the new home kit. I actually ordered a combination of the old home kit when it was like 50% off from the fan store with this Pittsburgh Dortmund collab. Don't ask me why, but unfortunately the not the shipping, but sort of the tariffs now were like $50 on top of what I originally paid. So I just did not pay that VAT or whatever tax you want to call it. And it has unfortunately returned. So my number 10 shirt of the last season did not arrive with Julian Brandt's name on it. But, you know, I will survive. But instead, I will eventually buy this one because I quite like it a lot. Lars, what is your opinion on the new home shirt? And I don't know if we also want to discuss the third kit, which apparently is very violet.
I haven't seen the third kit, so I'm not even sure what you're talking about. I'm kind of flabbergasted that there are tariffs on sports jerseys because it's not like you would otherwise have bought an American sports jersey. I don't know if you can't get the Dortmund one, you're not suddenly going to wear, I don't know, Philadelphia Flyers. Is that even a franchise? It's NHL, I think.
Yes, it is.
Anywho,
yes,
I think the new Dortmund home jersey is incredibly boring. I don't like it. I don't like when Dortmund, who are the black and yellows, wear basically a yellow t-shirt that people are paying, I don't know, 100 euros for. I don't know, there are some elements that close up you can definitely make out, but from afar it's basically a yellow t-shirt with white ringlets, at the collar and the cuff, if that's even the right word. I think it's boring. I want there to always be an element of black in the jersey, so I much prefer the past season's one, if that is now how we have to refer to it. But I appreciate that I'm in the minority, and a lot of people always call for Dortmund jerseys to be this clean, in quotation marks, basically monocolored yellow t-shirt. And if people want that, then they can have it. I'm not in the business of buying normal Dortmund home shirts. I used to buy the special editions, but now that I'm out of work, not even that anymore, because I have better ways of using money than spending 100 euros on. Essentially, it's always a t-shirt, so doesn't matter how good it looks. So if we were to score it out of 10, I would give the new home jersey a very mediocre 5.
Well, I'm giving it an 8. What I really want is like you just said, I want one really clean yellow shirt, which has a nicer texture. I don't need these white rings or any accents, and also I'm not entirely sure what the stuff under the armpits is. So there's that. The one, I think it was the 2014-15 Champions League shirt that had a collar that almost did the trick for me. But I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to that, so I also would like the numbers and the lettering to be a little bit nicer. I don't like the current font that they're using, to be honest. So there's that, and I also want the shorts. And you say the black and yellows, I want the shorts to be entirely black. I also don't need any weird stripes or anything on that. And the socks, to me, need to be black and yellow stripes. And that would be my ideal Dortmund kit. It hasn't happened in a while, but there's hope that maybe at some point it will. But we'll see. In recent years, I think you have been catered to far more in the sense that Dortmund had stuff other than yellow on their shirt. We had some really wild patterns as well. So this pleases me a little bit more, and I like the cleaner look. But I understand that this is a very subjective matter. And with that, we can leave it and Lars, unless there are any more topics you want to discuss, I want to remind everyone to send us your award categories for the next episode, where we then get to talk a little bit more about our season highlights, season lowlights, and all the other fun stuff. And yeah, and other than that, there's a whole off season to look forward to of transfer talk and these kind of updates, and World Cup will also be happening. And yeah, I don't know if the Dortmund women will manage to be promoted to the second division.
No,
Doesn't look like it at this point. So yeah, lots of things to discuss in the future. But Lars, again,
No,
if there's
there is
any
not.
other thing you want to discuss. All right, and then everyone out there, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time for the Yellow Wall Pod Season Awards. Until then, goodbye.